Welcome to DTLT Today. I am your host, Martha Burtis, and I'm joined today by my friend and former DTLT student aide, Shannon Hauser. Welcome, Shannon.
It's good to be here.
I hear this is your first time on DTLT Today.
It is. I'm actually a little offended you have not asked me to be on
well,
yet.
I'm not the person who you should be offended by, because they don't even ask me to be on it very often, and I work here. So really, it's Tim Owens and Andrew Rush who hoard the DTLT Today and the studio. And look at my bottom third. Ugh. I'm talking about on the screen.
Oh, I was going to say, your bottom is looking good today.
I can't even talk smack about Andy anymore, because look at what he made for me. I have been wanting to do an Ask Martha show for a while, because I think I have a lot of really good advice to offer people. I think I have a really unique and special perspective on the world, colored in part by the complete insanity that I work in and the people who I regularly have to deal with as a part of my job. And I was really hoping when I put up a call on Twitter that people would ask me for some advice questions. Yeah. I mean, I think I warrant that. I think I've proved myself as a valuable kind of member of the network, somebody who is able to kind of step in and provide useful and thoughtful analysis about difficult questions and situations. But I really didn't get those kinds of questions, so I'm a little disappointed about that. I thought about just making up questions and attributing them to people to embarrass them. But then I figured maybe that I shouldn't do that with the very first episode. That might alienate my audience early on. So I did, yes. Hogdog asked me a question about WordPress themes. Again, not quite the kind of question I was hoping for in my advice show. WordPress themes, really? But okay, I'm going to answer that question. In the meantime, though, before we get started, I want to take a moment and I want to give a shout out to one of my biggest fans and one of your biggest fans. Actually, he's a bigger fan of you than he is of me. He barely knows me. Today is Andy. Going to write a tell-all book about DTLT because she babysits for all of us. So you have babysat. You lost your audio when you showed Aiden there.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm sorry. We don't have Tim in the office today, so you know what are you gonna do? So Aiden, this is Aiden. Shannon has babysat for him for years, as she has for all of our children. And Aiden is 9. He is an only child.
Yes.
He is the only child in DTLT.
Yes, this is true, too.
Yes.
And he's an exact replica of his father.
Which is really special. And scary. It's really, really scary. So, but happy birthday to Aiden.
Happy birthday, Aiden.
We are really hoping that you had a great day. He got some very special presents this year. I know. Nicer than things that I usually get.
I know. I don't get things that nice for my birthday.
He got a new iPod Touch.
Still questioning myself.
With Minecraft on it, since that just came out yesterday. So that's great. That was special. Anywho, let's move right on to our questions. The first question was actually from Leslie, 1% Yellow, who is in our chat room right now. And she was asking a little bit about this online learning initiative and the 5 liberal arts values that we identified as part of that initiative.
I thought she was talking about Los Angeles because she said L.A. And I was like, what about Los Angeles?
I don't know anything about Los Angeles.
I've never really been.
No, and actually I don't really want to ever go there. Yeah. So we just put up a new website. Andy couldn't figure out how to actually put a computer screen up there, so I just have to hold my iPad. All right, so we put up a new website about this project. If anybody's interested, it's at oli.umwblogs.org. It's actually an old website, but I finally went in there and made it look good. And And there are 5 liberal arts values that have been identified as part of this project. And I, Leslie, would love to tell you more about how those were chosen and the fascinating conversation that resulted in them being chosen. But I wasn't part of the project back then, so I have no clue, really. I know that a group of faculty and Steve Greenlaw met in the summer and decided to talk amongst themselves about what the values of a liberal arts education are. And I do think one of the unique things about this project, which we've talked about before, is, a lot of online learning is very sort of go about developing sort of their rubrics and their guidelines for online learning. And Mary Washington decided to kind of take a step back from that.
What's the website?
It is oli.umwblogs.org. Thank you so much, Andy. We decided to kind of take a step back from that and start by identifying our values. And then, do you have a bug there?
Yes. No.
Botfly?
I just want to make sure my phone is on silent.
What happened, Andy?
Just full screen there.
Am I still on the air?
Are we still here?
Oh, okay. I can't actually do the show if I can't look at myself. So
You can't look at yourself on the website.
I know. Well, I can see myself. Well, no, it's not actually really me. Anyway, so we decided with this project that we were going to start with the values, and then what we call it is designing from values. And so we identified what those values were. For some reason, the little slideshow player, though, that actually shows the values isn't working. That's embarrassing. So there are 5 values, and when our faculty who are working on their course plans right now use those values to sort of shape and craft their course and think about the relationship between their course objectives and what they're trying to do online. And I'm going to try and recite the values, but I kind of feel like I'm on the spot. Interactive. Liberal arts education is interactive. It is also active in terms of active learning. It is reflective. It is, I can't remember the other 2, but if you go to the website, you'll find them. And so that's kind of the backstory on that, Leslie. It's a teaser, yeah. I wish I could tell you more about why those values, self-directed and community. Thank you, Leslie. Communal, that's the word, self-directed and communal. So those are sort of those foundational ideas that we are hoping to bake into the online courses that we're doing. You were a student at Mary Washington.
I was.
Do you feel like the learning that you did here was active, self-directed, communal, reflective, and interactive?
At various times, yes.
And at various times, no?
Yes. Sometimes it was more self-directed.
That is sad.
Sometimes it was less. Sometimes it was more communal. Sometimes it was less, depending on the class.
And so, do you feel like in classes that enacted like one of those values, all of those values, like it was an either all or nothing kind of thing? Like you either had really great classes that did it all, or you had classes that just sucked, and you were like, I didn't get much out of that.
No, I think there was various levels of each of the values,
right.
Depending on different professors have different styles,
right,
which encourage
absolutely
some more
yeah.
different values than other.
And I think that's a good, like what you're saying raises kind of a good point, which is that we've identified these 5 values, but we're also understanding that what we're talking about here is a very loose recipe. Mm-hmm. That depending on the course, depending on the content, depending on the instructor, depending on the students, mm-hmm. Depending on sort of the model that they're using in the class, how those values, the amount, the ways in which those values interact and are a part of the course experience, yeah. It's going to vary greatly. So we still have a lot of learning to do as part of this. And hopefully, if you want to go and see that site, go ahead and do that. The other thing that we have on that site, which we haven't actually announced yet, I guess this is the launch party, is there is a I know, we should have like streamers. Can you do like a special effect, Andy? Have like streamers fall down on us right now? Balloons.
And we can pretend they're actually falling on us.
We could sing Tim Minchin.
There is a little preparation that we do before these.
God, I thought you were better than that. Anyway, there is a form on that website. One of the things that we're doing with this project is we are going to ask our colleagues at other institutions, faculty, people working in ed tech, who have done things with online learning, to submit ideas about, Yay, Tim Minchin!
Yay!
So to submit ideas, we went to see him recently. To submit ideas about how to engender those values in online contexts. So there's actually like a little form that you can go and you can fill out and you can just share an idea. And we're going to be putting together sort of a collection of these ideas. And we're hoping...
The course proposal, or is that
It's over there on the right at the bottom. It says like share your idea.
Oh, okay.
So there's like submit your course and then there's share your idea. And what we really want this site eventually to become is sort of a landing place for people who are interested in teaching online to get ideas and to get inspiration. Not a checklist of did you do this, did you do this, did you do this, but hey, I'm really interested in building community online. How did somebody, achieve that? What did they do? What worked? What didn't work? So that we can kind of have a repository, not of objects, but of ideas. So that's sort of the goal there.
I have a question. So did we not think about liberal arts values until we decided we were going to do online things?
Very, very good question. She's astute, this one, let me tell you.
Would you call me? No.
It's a compliment.
Oh.
So one of the things, and Jim and Andy and Tim and I have talked about this a lot lately in working on this project, is the way in which once we start talking about online learning, for a variety of reasons, we and institutions at large suddenly develop these expectations that we're going to examine things in ways that we don't in face-to-face classes. And I think that's, for me, probably the hardest piece of this, because while I understand that what we're doing online very often feels different and offers different opportunities, has fundamental sort of underpinnings that are very, very different from what can happen or do happen in face-to-face classes, I also feel like it's sort of disrespectful in a way to faculty to say, now we want you to think about all these things that you've probably been thinking about anyway as part of teaching traditionally. So it's in the other part of this that I think Steve would say, Steve Greenlaw, who's also a member of that project leadership, is that in a way, there's a way in which we're hoping having a conversation about liberal arts values in the online space allows us maybe to have a more general conversation about liberal arts values in the face-to-face space. Not that we don't think that stuff is happening, but there's always an opportunity to be more explicit in our conversation about how we're doing those things. So there we go. And I don't know who Ben Harwood is. He is in our chat, but he is a big fan of guidelines and not policies, so I am a big fan of him. Ben, you are viewer of the day. Okay, so the only other question I got... What? The only other question I got was from Cogdog, and when Cogdog asks me questions about WordPress, you know things aren't going to go well, because everything I know about WordPress I essentially learned from Alan Levine. But he was asking about where people might go for good ideas for free WordPress themes. And that's kind of a funny question for me because I don't know. But because I'm a really good host, I did some research. It's not that I don't know, it's that I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an expert in where the best place to go is. I search for free themes all the time, but usually what I do is I go to Google and I type in free WordPress theme, and then I read what I find. But one of the I can offer some tips. One of which is if you're searching for good WordPress themes and you are doing a Google search, if you have an idea of the kind of theme you're looking for, like a magazine theme or a gallery theme or a minimalist theme or a blog theme, search for those specifically because there are a lot of like design blogs and design sites that will do kind of wrap-up posts where they'll do like the 25 best magazine themes. And so very often you'll find some nice resources that way. And then another really good resource is that Smashing Magazine every year does a roundup of the best WordPress themes of the year. So they just recently, I think, did the 2011 roundup. I think they did that at the end of the summer. They do it every year, and I actually recommend going back and looking at some of the previous years, in part because it's a really interesting history of WordPress theme development, but in part, too, because there's still some really good stuff in there, even if it is 1 or 2 years old, especially if the developers are continuing to update. My personal perspective on theming, I have to admit, is I often do it from scratch, which isn't a good idea because I'm lazy. So I do, like, 60% of it well, and then I get lazy on the last 40%. And so I'm not good at like that final stretch. I mostly just like the challenge. So when I do it from scratch lately, what I've been using actually is a free theme called 960 BC, which if anybody's, are you familiar with the 960 grid system? So grid system is, there are lots of different grid systems, but 960 is a grid system that allows you to do web layout, design layout, really easily and quickly. And 960 BC is a free WordPress theme that is built on that grid system, so that right from the beginning you've got like a really easy layout template. So I use 960 BC, and then lately here at Mary Washington, this isn't in the free territory, we actually bought the full suite of StudioPress themes, which are built on the Genesis framework, which we love. So we do use those a lot, and I do some modification of those. Those are harder to mod though, for a variety of reasons. So on the premium side, I'm a big fan of Genesis. On the free side, I don't have anything I love more than anything else other than doing it from scratch. But there are lots of great things, free things to find out there. Andy, you're looking at me. Are there questions in the audience that I should be answering? Because this is your opportunity, folks. If you didn't get your question in on Twitter and you are dying to have Martha answer it, I am awaiting your inquiries.
We could always switch to the evil twin Martha, too.
Yes, put on Evil Twin Martha. Isn't that cool? We like switch. And now I can't actually, it's weird. But that doesn't make sense, because shouldn't I be mirrored? Oh, I am.
You are mirrored.
I am mirrored.
It's
like looking in a mirror now. That's so cool. So, and what else? I mean, that's about all we have for questions. Shannon and I have been doing some very fun things lately.
Yeah.
We went to see Rent last night here at Mary Washington, which was nice. Here, somebody has a question. Why don't we ever hear about tech support headaches? How do you guys do the support for students in DS-106 before the term starts?
Don't.
Support for students? Julia, what are you talking about? Don't you know us? Oh, the domain reg. Okay, so how does that work? I actually have blogged about this, and I blogged about my major tech headaches, but obviously you don't read my blog. I won't hold it against you. We spend usually at least the first week doing domain registration and buying a host. I blogged about it at the beginning of this summer when, I don't know the link. Go to my blog. I blogged about it at the beginning of the summer because when I was doing the 5-week class, we ran into a lot of tech problems that first week. And when you're doing a 5-week class, that's really, really frustrating. But basically that first week, it usually bleeds into the second week. They buy their web hosting space and they buy their domain. And then we help them get that all set up. But Julia, even before the class starts, Jim and I both send out an email as we can, sort of warning them about this and preparing them for it. And in fact, for Jim's class, his 5-week class, because my experience was sort of cumbersome, he sent out an email about a week and a half before his class, and he had them do it before they even started. There was still some catch-up that they had, catch-up, not like the condiment, like catching up, that they had to do to go back and cover problems that arose. But, yeah, oh, Andy's going to pull it up for you. So I don't know, it was like sometime in June, something about technical difficulties and broccoli. I was growing broccoli in the garden. I don't know. What do you do if they don't have credit cards? We've never had that happen. They buy it directly, and we don't mediate it. Jim has worked out an arrangement with the people who do our hosting for UMW blogs. That's a really low rate, monthly rate for students, and it's a month-to-month, so they don't have to buy a year contract, which is the biggest issue when you're doing hosting for a class like this. Mm-hmm. So it ends up being probably comparable to what a book would be, like about $40 for the semester, and if for a summer class, it's even less. And since we don't assign a book, we feel like that's fair. Like that's kind of the cost of the class for them.
All about
yes, failing publicly and broccoli. That's my post. Anyway, back to Rent. We went to see Rent last night, which was very nice.
It was very good.
Downstairs. There were some really amazing student performances. Just like hard to believe that these kids are like right down the hall. We actually live in the building that houses the theater department.
Yep.
So, but we surprisingly don't have a lot of students out in the hall like emoting and singing, which is nice. But I like the music of Rent, so I wouldn't have minded hearing it over the last couple of weeks. So what was your favorite part of the show? What did you think was the standout performance last night?
Probably Maureen. Like when she first came out. Like
Maureen's monologue was just hysterical.
It was.
Really, really. And the guy who played Angel was also
was
very, very talented. And those are probably the two parts that I think, Angel in particular, you just have to have somebody spectacular in that part. So it was really fun. And then 2 weeks ago, we went to see Tim Minchin in New York.
Yes.
Which was just amazing.
It was.
I don't even know how to describe it.
Me neither.
I know, yeah. We left.
Irreverent.
It was irreverent.
Irreverent,
but that's true.
That's...
And then we went to see a play the next day called Seminar with Alan Rickman.
Yes.
Who I only know from the Harry Potter movies because I have no culture. But that was a really good play. Would you like to summarize what that was about? Because it's an academic play.
It is an academic play. A novelist who, I guess he's also a professor of some sort, a teacher.
He's an editor.
He's an editor at that point.
Oh, but he had been.
He had been.
Yeah.
Takes on 4 young authors and kind of pretty much destroys their writing in a humorous fashion and destroying them in the process, criticizing their writing and kind of building.
And it's this kind of send up of the whole aspiring writer phenomenon and like, the different personalities of the kinds of people who you find aspiring to be writers and this guy who's this sort of washed up genius. And it's really good, and it was in previews. I don't know when it was opening
soon.
For real, but anybody in New York who wants a good, kind of intelligent comedy, I thought it was really well done. And the guy from Stand By Me is in it.
Jerry O'Connell,
who played the little fat kid, Vern. Totally doesn't look like him anymore.
He's good looking.
He's really good looking. And he was on that show. What did we decide? What show did we decide he was on?
Crossing Jordan.
Crossing Jordan, which I'd seen a few episodes of. I don't really watch that show. So that was really cool. Nice to see him grow up into such a success. Really. Makes my heart warm. And I see that the real Martha Burtis has left the chat room, which I think is just further evidence that the real Martha Burtis is not the real Martha Burtis.
Or is it?
Or
This Martha Burtis?
I don't know. Or is it?
What does that mean?
I don't know. I'm confused.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
No
this
problem.
was a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll do Ask Martha again if Tim and Jim and Andy will let me, because they don't let me get on TV very much. I think because they're intimidated. So, but I really hope that the next time we'll get some more questions, hopefully of the advice variety, because like I said, I'm really good with the advice. And I will look forward to seeing you all again on Ask Martha. Thanks again, Shannon.
Thank you, Martha.
Have a great weekend.